All right, this pair pretty fascinating on a number of levels over the past 5 seasons. They rank 1-2 in the NBA in a number of key categories. Harden first in points. Westbrook tops in the league in assists and usage rate. 2 guys who love the ball in their hands. And now to a guy who loves the mic and the camera and who played some college basketball, Stephen A. Smith. Right out of the gate, what do you make of this deal?
I love it. Personally, I mean, I think it puts Houston right back in the mix. We all know that James Harden was a top 2 MVP candidate, was the MVP last season, not the one that just passed. We know what he brings to the table. And the relationship with him and Chris Paul wasn't ideal at the end. They didn't seem to want to play with one another. Chris Paul clearly wanted out, even though he didn't want to say that publicly. It was time for him to move on, and James Harden wasn't going to have a problem with that at all. Having said all of that, James Harden reuniting with Russell Westbrook makes them incredibly formidable. We understand that Russell Westbrook hasn't looked the way that we're accustomed to seeing him look. But he's fresh off of 3 consecutive years of averaging a triple-double, even though last year he shot a horrific 65% from the free throw line, according to his standards, and has shot 29% from three-point range over the last 2 years. He's still an unstoppable force one-on-one. He can't be guarded. He's bigger, he's stronger, and faster than Chris Paul, not to mention a little bit younger as well. And so you take that into consideration, along with the fact that his relationship with James Harden is pretty close because they're former teammates in Oklahoma City, and then you consider what they still have in tow, whether it's a guy like an Eric Gordon and others with a Clint Capella. Houston obviously is in the mix. Yet again, this is a move that had to be made. I have no problem with Houston making it whatsoever. I think from a talent perspective, it puts them right back in title contention picture. My only question mark is whether or not Mike D'Antoni can coach them on that level. We know he can win regular season games. We know he can win a couple of playoff series. But can he coach them in the manner that they need to be coached to get them over the hump? That's the lone question mark about the Houston Rockets after this deal. I see no other question marks to think of.
Well, you took us right to our second question. How do they coexist on the court, particularly when both of them usually like to be the number one option, the guy who has the ball most of the time?
Well, this is James Harden's team, and James Harden is a better perimeter shooter than Russell Westbrook. So you take that into consideration along with the 6 years of excellence that James Harden has registered for the Houston Rockets. And there is no question that Russell Westbrook is coming to James Harden's team. He's not coming to take over the Houston Rockets. But that's not going to be a challenge for him because he doesn't have a problem with it because they're boys. They're pretty tight. They used to play with one another. It was Russell Westbrook's team in OKC in his eyes, not Kevin Durant, but him. But in Houston, it's clearly James Harden. So really this comes down to Mike D'Antoni. His system predicts that, it predicates you being able to hit perimeter shots, making sure you push the ball up the floor at all time, even willing to sacrifice some defensive possessions from time to time. But there's a different ownership in place in Tillman Fertitta. He's not going to tolerate much. That's why Chris Paul is gone, because this man has expectations. He wants to win the championship, and he knew that getting this move was going to get them closer to that. In the case of Chris Paul, that wasn't going to happen. That's why he's gone. Russell Westbrook is there. They're back in title contention, but I don't think there's any question about their offense, and I don't think there's any question about their talent. The question now is whether Mike D'Antoni, who's a pretty damn good coach, can get them over the hump, which is something he wasn't able to do in Phoenix, New York, L.A., and thus far Houston. We'll see if he can pull it off.
Stephen A. Smith, look forward to more commentary from you on the TV Friday. Thanks for joining us.
You know it.
Can a brother get a dynamic duo? Yes, apparently. We've got a month full of them. June 15th, Anthony Davis traded to the Lakers to join forces with LeBron James. Those two rank second and third all-time player efficiency rating. Official starter free agency, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. They team up, commit to the Nets. Durant will likely miss the entire season with an Achilles injury. They suffered in the finals, but they're a twosome. July 5th, Kawhi Leonard committed to the Clippers. OKC traded Paul George as LA became the second team in NBA history to add multiple 25-point-per-game scores in a single offseason. That started this. Russell Westbrook now reunited with Harden in Houston. Those two played in OKC for 3 seasons before Harden was traded to Houston. They went to the finals once as well. So the Rockets' odds of winning the NBA title improve from 10-1 before the trade. It's now 7-1. That's from our friends. Who am I kidding? They're Kenny's friends in the Caesars Sportsbook.
All good buddies.
You're wired in Vegas.
Play the hard ways on the come out.
Balance of power resides in the Western Conference. 5 of the 7 title favorites on the west side of things. Lakers have the best odds right now. Cliff.
Knitting is such a meditative activity. one.
Yeah, sports, that's us. So we were going to lead with the one baseball game actually played. But then, as usual, the NBA offered up something far sexier. The deal making is not done in that league. Two big-name players swapped for each other on Thursday night.
Point guards on the move. Russell Westbrook taking his triple-doubles to Texas, and Chris Paul going back to the oil patch. A thunderclap and a rocket blast. OKC sending its all-star point guard Westbrook to Houston for its point guard Paul. That's an MVP, all kinds of all-star games between the two of them. Oklahoma City also gets 2 number-1 draft picks and a couple of swaps for 2 other years. A week after Paul George leaves town, Westbrook goes to reunited with James Harden. Paul started his NBA career in Oklahoma with the Hurricane-transplanted Hornets. Adrian Wojnarowski, of course, first with the news of this trade here with us on SportsCenter to fill us in on what else is happening. Woj, from first making Russ available to making a deal seems to have happened really quickly. How did it all come together?
Very much by design, John. Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook, they did not want this to linger. And they were aggressive this week in searching out trade partners. Houston, Miami. Detroit showed some interest, but it was really a Houston-Miami derby. And, earlier today, Houston, Oklahoma City came to terms on an agreement. And this was done almost as soon as this auction started.
If OKC didn't want to strand Westbrook in the middle of what's going to be a rebuilding project because they have all these #1 picks now, it seems the same might go for a 34-year-old Paul. Is there more to come here with CP3?
I believe so, John. I think the Thunder are going to talk with Chris Paul's agent, Leon Rose, try to get a sense of what he might like to happen here. 3 years, $124 million left on Paul's contract. It's 1 year less than Westbrook's 4 for $171. That goes back to Houston. But, they're trying here. They're headed toward a rebuild. They still have a team this year, that's competitive in Oklahoma City. The market's going to be a very short list of teams, probably beginning and ending with Miami to see if there's a deal that could possibly work with the Heat, see if they're willing to take on that money and whether they might want a draft pick with it to take on that kind of money. But they were interested in Westbrook. Houston beat them out for him. Now I think there could be a conversation to be had between Oklahoma City and Miami. Otherwise, Oklahoma City would start the season with Chris Paul. He actually played there once before when New Orleans, after Hurricane Katrina, played their season there. He's familiar with the market. But at this point in his career, Chris Paul wants to win. He wants to be with a contender. He doesn't have that with the Thunder.
Somebody call Pat Riley. Woj, the offseason reshaping of the NBA continues. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, this pair pretty fascinating.